Alright then guys, welcome to the Bright Show Podcast Football. Before we start this video, please do me a favour. Click the like button, subscribe and leave your comments in the section below because I really want to know what you think about this one. Guys, we're going to talk about ERIK Ten Hag. What is next for ERIK Ten Hag? Now that is a question that I guess everyone is asking after United win the FA Cup final. Now, before the FA Cup final, and actually, let's go all the way at the beginning of the season. ERIK has not had a very good season. It must be said. And I think all United fans are aware of this. I think United fans, they've accepted that this has been a really bad season. ERIK, he struggled with injuries. He struggled to get the team going and the team playing the way he wants to play. And ultimately, he's come, eighth on a table. He got this season. Coming from third last year, winning the Carabao Cup, having a very good run in Europe. FA Cup final last year as well. So coming into this year, a lot of United fans were really hopeful and very excited for the year, but for the season, but it hasn't gone to plan. And he has to look at himself and assess where it all went wrong. But of course, before the FA Cup final against City this year, which United have just won, the conversation and a lot of journalists and newspaper articles have just basically broke the news that Manchester United are going to sack ERIK Ten Hag regardless of whether he wins the FA Cup or not. And, that couldn't have been any better for the team. To get such news before the most important game of the season was the worst, timing ever. But I guess that did not derail the team, and ERIK was able to galvanise his guys and his players, and they went out there and they won the FA Cup, against City. And so now, if you then look at his season this season, coming eighth in the Premier League, winning, the FA Cup, having brought through some really young players as well, Garnacho, Kobe Mainoo, having brought Rasmus Højlund, and Ahmad is coming, Willy Kambola is also coming as well. So you can see that he's starting to sort of bring players in that could do a job for United. But, it hasn't gone well and that is definitely fair to say. But if you're Ineos, if you're Sir John Ratcliffe, what is going through your head, right? What could be going through your head at this moment? Because do you sack a manager that has won back-to-back 2 trophies in 2 seasons and basically bring in a new manager that you're uncertain of? Because there isn't a lot of options out there. Look, the names that have been, talked about recently, Thomas Tuchel, Mauricio Pochettino, Thomas Frank, these names, Kieran McKenna, who was part of Ollie's team, by the way. So these are not managers that, in my opinion, are above what Ten Hag is. I don't think these are miles better than Ten Hag. Certainly not Thomas Frank, and certainly not Kieran McKenna. So managing Manchester United is a massive task, and to look at Kieran McKenna and Thomas Frank, who have not managed any big teams, in their managerial career is I think is crazy, right? Is absurd. So, if you're ERIK Ten Hag, right, after all this media circus, and of course after the FA Cup final, journalists were asking him incredibly, disgraceful comments. When he's just won a cup, you want him to enjoy it, but then the questions were, are you leaving? Are you being sacked? What do you think about Ineos having to talk to other managers? And it just seemed as though ERIK was really frustrated about that, and he bite back, and he was giving it back to the pundits and the media and the journalists. So, look, for me as a United fan, I think that Erik ten Hag deserves another year. I think he deserves at least up until December this year, once the Premier League starts. Um, but you have to back him, right? You have to back him. You have to give him the players that he needs. You have to build around Garnacho, Kobe Mainoo, Rasmus Højlund, Bruno Fernandes. You have to build around these players, and you have to bring in experienced players, but also young players that have got the energy to play and to play with passion for Manchester United, right? You need to give Erik the time up until December, as I said, at least to implement his style of play, to see what he can do, to see if he's going to make any improvements, this year in the Premier League. Of course, United have now qualified for the Europa League, and there'll be the domestic cups, Carabao Cup and FA Cup also available to play for. So, for me, you've got to give him the opportunity to turn things around, because it hasn't been very good this year, right? And everyone admits that. But there have been a lot of injuries that he's had to deal with, and that has a massive effect on the way a team play when your best players are out, when you don't have a settled centre back pairing. You're all over the place, right? Because as you can see, Martinez and Varane, they are very important for the team in terms of the way that the team will play from the back, to involve the attack and to make that connection between the defense, the midfield, and attack. Martinez, Varane, they're really crucial for the way they play. So it hasn't been great, but I think, if you're Jim Ratcliffe, if you're Ineos, what you should be thinking here is we got to give this guy the opportunity to turn things around, right? We got to give this guy the opportunity up until December to see what he can do. If you're Ineos, that's what you're thinking, and that's what you want to do. Because if you bring another manager in, it might disrupt the whole process, right? Because then that manager would want his players, would want to play a different style, would want to, build up differently, and then he's going to have to get rid of some players that he didn't buy. So then the cycle repeats again. But if you give Erik, his contract is up next year anyway, so he's got 1 year left. So why don't you give him that 1 year to really get his players and his act together and get going? And if he doesn't work, you get rid of him. So look, I think that is the sensible things to do. I think that is the most logical thing to do for a club like Man United that is currently in transition, a club that is building again. You want to stick with one manager, and you want to give him the opportunity to turn things around, and I think Erik can do it. But look, that's how I feel about it. You guys let me know what you think about it, because I'm really looking forward to reading your comments and seeing what you think about this one, because it's been a topic that needs discussing, that needs talking about. We can have a debate in the comment section. I'm always happy to read, and if you've left a comment, I'm always happy to respond and go through it together. Of course, like, subscribe. Let's build this community up. There's more we're going to do on this channel. We're going to get it all the way up. And I look forward to discussing more of these topics and more of football matters with you guys. I'll see you on the next one.